Hi students, very good evening to you, and let us continue yesterday's lecture from where we have stopped the Paradise Lost poem, that's book 1. I am sharing my screen now so that you can see the lines here. Yeah, we have stopped with the fourth speech of Saturn where he was addressing the fallen angels and very ironically remarking that why are you lying down like that? Is it to take rest, or are you worshipping the god in the prostrate manner, etc.? So he says that now it is the time we should awake, arise, or be forever fallen. So this is the call of Saturn to all his followers who are the fallen angels. Now, after Saturn called, what happened? They heard and were abashed, and up they sprung upon the wing. As with men wont to watch on duty, sleeping found by whom they dread, rouse and bestir themselves ere well awake. See how they actually sprung on their wing, how they heard the call of Saturn and they felt abashed because their leader is calling them, and as if someone who is in the watchman duty, and his duty is to God to watch, but maybe he might be sleeping. So at that time, if some his owner calls, how he gets up and then adjusts himself before he is completely awake. With a shock they woke up, as the night watchman who is sleeping, who is not supposed to sleep, he is sleeping. So abashed he may feel, and in the similar manner, this army of Saturn, the fallen angels of Saturn, actually, when they heard the call of their leader, of course, they felt ashamed that they could not wake up before their leader. So, on when he called them, they immediately rose, and upon their wings they started flying. Nor did they not perceive the evil plight in which they were. So when he called, they could not even notice where they were. So what is their bad plight, what is their bad situation, the painful situation which they were lying in the fiery gulf, or the fierce pains not feel. So fallen from such a height, of course they might be very shocked, and they might have all the pains and all the shock for falling from such a height. But when they heard the voice of their leader, they did not care for anything, care for the pain, shock, etc. Yet to their general's voice they soon obeyed. So this is the greatness of Saturn in a way as a leader. So when he shouted, when he called upon them, immediately they have arisen and they listen to the voice of the leader. And how many are they? Innumerable. So many they are. As when the potent rod of Amarom's son. Now here from this line to say like night, darkened all the land of Nile, till that line, that is 343, I think. It is a simile, an epic simile. An epic simile of comparing the innumerable fallen angels with the locusts. Locusts are midatalu, Okay, locusts which came like a cloud and darkened the whole kingdom of Egypt. Okay, why? Because it happened because of Amram's son. Amram's son is Moses, the prophet Moses, who was leading the Israelites from slavery into the delivery, that is deliverance from Egypt from the bond, deliverance from the bondage of slavery, and leading them into the land of honey and milk. So Moses was pleading King Pharaoh again and again. But Pharaoh now says okay, now says no, and then he wants to show sometimes what is the greatness of your God, etc. So then, to reveal the greatness of God to Pharaoh, Moses keeps on performing some miracles. So the miracle, one of the miracles is calling upon the locusts. They came innumerable, like a dark cloud on the whole kingdom, and they eat away all the crop. So they are the pitchy cloud of locusts. They came with the eastern wind and over the realm of impious Pharaoh, unholy Pharaoh, impious. Impious is not Christian, not a believer. So unholy Pharaoh, they came. And how was the darkness when the locusts came? It was like night, complete night. The day, on the day they came, but so they came like a dark cloud, a huge dark cloud, that the whole kingdom became dark. So you can imagine the innumerable locusts that might have formed that huge cloud. So that means what? We cannot even count the locusts. In the similar manner, the fallen angels now who have risen from the fiery lake are like that. They are also innumerable, like the locusts that were called by Moses, the prophet Moses, once onto the kingdom of Pharaoh. So numberless were those bad angels seen. So numberless, we can't even count. And how are they? Hovering on wing under the cope of hell. They are all flying in the cope of the hell, twixt upper nether and surrounding fires, and no place in the hell. They have occupied the whole hell, and they are below, upper, hither, thither, etc. Everywhere they are. And they were just hovering in the wind. A bird hovers in the wind, like that. They are just flying in the wind itself, till, as a signal given, the uplifted spear of their great sultan waving to direct their course. So, how, for how much time they were hovering on the in the wind, till Saturn, lifting his spear, gave a signal to come this way. See, we have seen how Saturn and Beelzebub have risen out of, or got out of the fiery gulf, and then they stood upon somewhat firm burning stone, like that place. So there, to come there, Saturn has shown the spear and directed them. So till they got the direction, they were just hovering in the wind. So once the direction is given, they have their course in even balance down, they light on the firm brimstone and fill all the plain. Then they came on to the brimstone where Saturn was standing, and all the plain of hell was occupied by these fallen angels. Now again, he has given already one epic simile, how many they are, innumerable they are. Now again, he is comparing these fallen angels with the north, a multitude like which the populous north poured never from her frozen loins to pass Rhine or the Danube, Rhine and the Danube river, when her barbarous sons came like a deluge on the south. So, from southern, the all barbarous races have invaded the north, Okay, and he says they spread beneath the Gibraltar to the Libyan sands. So, of course, he says Milton, but for the European, every other race is barbarous, populous, north, etc. So many from south, innumerable forces have invaded the north, and he says they are also like that. Forthwith from way every squadron and each band, the heads and leaders thither haste, where stood their great commander. God, I know. So no, now they started arranging themselves into squadrons with the troops, like army troops, and arranging themselves, and they started actually moving it to their commanders. How are they in the heaven? Now he says that they are godlike shapes and forms excelling human, princely dignities and powers that erst in heaven sat on thrones. Now leaving them here in the hell, and they are now not in their original shapes. But what are their original shapes? Uh, Milton, he says that they are God-like shapes once upon a time in the heaven. They are like princely dignities, and they are beautiful than humans. And then they were powerful people also. Erstwhile, before they have fallen on the hell, they were sitting beside the throne of God. But what happened now? Though on their names in heavenly records now be no memorial. Now they are removed from the records of heaven, blotted out and erased. Their names were erased and they were no more in the heaven. Because by their rebellion from the books of life. Why? Because they have rebelled, their names were removed from the books of life, nor had they yet among the sons of Eve. Now, these fallen angels are not even among the, even on the earth, because before the creation of hell, the earth is not created. It was later. Even Saturn in the following lines, somewhere we'll get that sort, Saturn, because he is like the right hand of God in the heaven. He says that I know that God is going to create a world called Earth, and then place human beings, etc. So these plans, all plans of God are known to Lucifer. But by the time they were in hell, the earth is not created, and so they were removed from the heaven's records, and they were not even on earth among the sons of Eve. Eve means human beings, because after the earth is created, they came onto the earth, and then they have acquired new names. Okay, they what happened after the creation of the earth? They started wandering on the earth, and in the beginning itself we have seen how Saturn, that is infernal serpent, how he seduced Eve, the daughter of God, and then made them to God, made God to throw them out of the Garden of Heaven, Eden, which is of course like a paradise, and how they brought the human fall also, the fall of men also. So here he says that now they were not even on earth, but they will come onto the earth, and they will acquire some names, and they will be creating havoc with human beings, and they will of course give much trial to God by pestering human beings. Of course, half mankind they corrupted to forsake God, their creator. So many a times actually they tempt, they seduce, as they did with Eve. Not only that, if you know the Bible, you have many instances where great prophets were seduced by these Saturn, like King Solomon, of course. Though he was a great believer, he no, left God to worship the idols. So like that, from King Solomon to many prophets, you have many instances. Even Jesus Christ, it is believed that he was disturbed by Satan. Of course, because Christ is the God, Son of God, he will not be tempted by Satan. But all other human beings, all prophets, all kings were also tempted. And even it is stated in the Bible that Israelites, after they were delivered from the slavery, while in their journey to the land of honey and milk, also they were tempted by these Satan and his army, to leave God, and then they make a gold calf and worship. So actually, the Christian belief is that they should not worship images. So this is what he is referring to here, Milton. He says, of mankind they corrupted to forsake God, their creator. So they, after earth is created, after Adam and Eve were created, he tempted Eve, and then they were sent out of the Eden and placed in the earth. And then Satan started his work, always tempting one or the other human beings, so that they will forsake God, their own creator, and the invisible glory of him that made them to transform after the image of a brute. So brute means animal. So many times the Saturn and the fallen angels have tempted people to make the forms of animals and worship them with gay religions full of pomp and gold. As you know, all other religions which worship animal forms or human forms and celebrate with much pomp and gold, etc., are called as actually the heathen religions. And it is believed that they are all devils, and devils to adore for deities. So Milton says that they are all devils, but they are adored for gods, deities. Then were they known to men by various names. So then, slowly they came to be known among humankind with various names and various idols through the heathen world. So, the world which is not Christian is actually referred to as heathen world. So Milton says that after the fall of Saturn, that is after his defeat in the war, and his fall in the hell, he was waiting for God to create earth and place human beings. And then he started working with these human beings. And because he is also immortal, they also have some powers, okay, some supernatural powers, and with them they could seduce human beings, so to worship them, not in the form of God, their creator, but in the animal forms, etc. Okay, not a worship of solemnity, silence, or what you say, and tranquility, but it is a worship of pomp and glory, noise, etc. Okay, so now again Milton is invoking the muse, because it is a very important issue that he is going to address. Now say muse, their names then known. So, because muse is considered to be the omniscient, omnipresent, and it is always there, and it knows. The muse, like dove spreading its wings, knows everything. So Milton is asking, tell me their names. Who first? Who last? Roused from the slumber on that fiery couch. So, how they came out of that fiery gulf, who first came, who last came, at their great emperor's call. So when the emperor called them, as next in worth came singly, where he stood on the bare strand, while the promiscuous crowd stood at aloof. So the next person to Saturn, that is Beelzebub, is always already there with Saturn. Now who came? Who else? So now the chief were those who from the pit of hell, roaming to seek their prey on earth, dust fix their seats long after next the seat of God. Their altars by his altar, gods adored among the nations, round and dust abide. Jehovah thundering out of Zion, throned between the cherubim, yea, often placed within his sanctuary itself their shrines. Abominations and with cursed things his holy rites and solemn feast profaned, and with their darkness durst affront his light. He is saying, Milton here is saying that these people, they are, these fallen angels were roaming on earth, seducing kings, and they seduce to such an extent that they have built altars on the side of the altar of God itself. Here it is a reference to Jerusalem. Okay, and also a reference to the temples that were built by Solomon, okay, under the influence of his wives, okay, and then Jehovah of course have punished them. God have punished them, and all they have built temples and did all abominations like human sacrifice, okay, and dancing, singing, and other kinds of sacrifices, etc., and making the idols of beasts, calf, etc. So, with their darkness, he says, Milton is saying that they have confronted the light of God. See, it is all regarding Israelites, especially because Israelites were delivered from the slavery of Pharaohs, and they have to be very obedient to God, their creator and the deliverer also. But they were not like that, because these fallen angels, one or the other, went and they tempted them, so that they arranged for themselves temples, shrines, or worshipping places by the side of Jehovah's temple itself, by the side of God's place of worship himself. So this is how they have actually corrupted the human beings, and they have taken the human beings away from God, according to Milton here. And as we have already noticed in the previous lines, that Saturn says that what is his prime duty after um, after uh, after he was thrown out of hell, sorry, heaven, being in the hell, he says that my prime aim is to bring to do evil and work against God perpetually, continuously to work against God only. So he says, whatever good he wants to, God wants to bring out of my evil also, then also I will try to, what he says, to bring bad. So thus all some of the chief angels like Beelzebub, okay, and others, the names will be given. They have went to the different parts of the earth, and they seduced human beings with their supernatural powers, and they made themselves as gods on earth. So this is what he says, and with first he gives the name of Moloch. So he says he's a horrid king, besmeared with blood of human sacrifice. So Moloch is a horrid king who encouraged, he became the god, and he wants human sacrifices. And of course, parents' tears when children, especially children. Moloch accepts sacrifices of children's only. While parents are there, the children will be burnt. It's like they are put on the fire. Okay. And it's like a burnt offering. The burnt offering is of course of an animal is mentioned in the Bible, but here it is the burnt offering of human children. Okay, human sacrifice. And he gives the details of Moloch is the first one of the chief angels. He became god among Ammonites in the place of Rabbah, Agrob, Basan, okay, Arnon, and etc. Okay, and he says that Moloch seduced Solomon also, and he actually built a temple by the side of the temple of God on the hill where, of course, God's temple is located. And he is referring to the valley of Hinnom, Tophet. They are valleys, Gehenna, and they are all valleys in the Jerusalem. So, first chief angel who became the god of Ammonites, etc., is Moloch. And then, second, he says, next Chemos. Next comes Chemos, the obscene dread of Moab's sons. He is a god of obscenity. He is worshipped by Moabites, okay, people who live in Moab, from Aror to Nebo and the wild of southmost Abarim, in Hezbon, Horonaim, Sion's realm, beyond the flowery dale of Sigma, clad with vines and Eliel to the asphaltic pole. So here he says that second god, no, second fallen angel who became a god is Chemos, and of course he is popular in all these places. So here he says, um, these people were being worshipped in various places in Israel, you know, among the human beings in different places. And he says there after Chemos, there is Baalim and Astoreth. They, if you know the Bible, you might have heard this word as Baalim Devatalu and Astoreth Devatalu. Okay, they are these feminine, and he says that uh, these gods, you know, these Moloch, Astoreth, or whatever they are, they can change their sex also and assume whatever image they want or shape they want, because they are also having the supernatural powers. Okay. Now, so they can, of course, change their shapes and get their things done, you know, because they could change their shapes. Of course, people consider them to be having some powers, and they consider them to be god-like, equal to God. So they forsake the real God and go on after worshipping these gods, bestial gods, you know, gods in the shape of beasts, etc. And later he mentions Astoreth. Okay. This Astaroth, whom the Phoenicians, okay, called Astarte, Queen of Heaven. She is called as Queen of Heaven, having crescent horns, to whose bright image nightly by the moon Sidonian virgins paid their vows and songs. Astoreth goddess is worshipped by the virgins of Sidon. Okay, our temple is built on the offensive mountain, built by that uxorious king, King Solomon, whose heart, though large, beguiled by fair idolatresses. So Solomon is very wise, yet he was beguiled or cheated by the fair idolatresses, means who worship idols, and he fell to the idols foul, and he built the temple of Ashtoreth. So she is a female goddess. Now, So it is not only gods. All fallen angels are not male, but they can take any form. We can't say that they are male or female, or both also together. So they can take any form. And now some Milton says Tammuz. So Moloch, Chemos, Balim, Astoreth, and Tammuz. Tammuz came next behind, whose annual wound in Lebanon allured the Syrian damsels to lament his fate. Okay, in Amorous deities, all is summer's day. So Tammuz is worshipped in Lebanon. So every year it is believed that his wound will be raked, and all these damsels will be worshipping him on summers. Okay, with amorous deities, with love songs. While smooth Adonis from his native rock ran purple to the sea, supposed with blood of Tammuz, yearly wounded. It is believed that because of the wound of Tammuz only, the sea turns purple annually, and the loud tail infected Sion's daughters with like heat. Maybe he is wounded because of his love to punishment, love for a girl, and he was punished. So all girls actually consider him as love god, and they pray him with wanton passions in the sacred porch of Scale. Okay, prophet Ezekiel saw when by the vision led his eye surveyed the dark idolatries of alienated Judah. So Judas, they worshipped this, and Ezekiel prophet saw how they are committing sin by worshipping this Tammuz. And next came one who mourned in earnest when the captive ark maimed his brute image, head and hands lopped off in his own temple on the ground cell edge, where he fell flat and shamed his worshippers. Dagon. So the next one is Dagon. So his statue they made, but it is like a brute animal. Okay, and sea monster, upward man. So it appears like a half man and half sea monster, like a fish, and a downward fish. So like as we have mermaids, so he is the next one who is having human shape and then sea monster. Yet he is having his temple in Azotus, dreaded through the coast of Palestine in Gath. So these are the places where he was worshipped: Palestine, Gath, Azotus, Askelon, Akron, Gaza, and others. Then Dagon was followed by Rimmon, another fallen angels, and where his seat is, where the place of his worship is fair Damascus, on the fertile banks of Abana and Farfar. So these are all the fertile lands. In these places, Dagon was worshipped. He also, against the house of God, was bold. A leper once he lost and gained a king, Ahaz. So this a leper, King Ahaz, was actually taken over by this Rimmon. He believed in Rimmon. He sought his conqueror, whom he drew God's altar to disparage and displace for one of Syrian mode, whereon to burn his odious offerings and adore the gods whom he had vanquished. So Ahaz tried to worship Rimmon with burnt offerings in the place of God. So after these, after Dagon, and then Rimmon, etc., all these Moloch, um, all these names, as I have given you, he says that along with these chief gods, there are many, a crew of old renown. like Osiris, Isis, Horus, and their train. So he says, not only these few that I have mentioned, but there are a crew means what? Many. So like they have like a train. So one after the other, one after the other, they have followed with monstrous shapes and sorceries abused. All these are not in gods in human like human forms, etc., but they are all monstrous shapes and sorceries abused fanatic Egypt and her priests to seek their wandering gods disguised in brutish forms rather than human. So Egypt he is referring to, which is like the place of idolatry. And then he says that all these people have gone to worship these brutish forms. Not only Egyptians, but Israelites also did not escape. That is what he says. Nor did Israel escape the infection. So when all these fallen angels were coming onto the earth and seducing kings also to build them temples and make burnt offerings and other offerings and worships, continuously worshipping all other places like Ammonites, okay, Syrians, Sidonians, all others, and Egyptians. He says finally, not even Israelites were an exception for this. This infection of worshipping the bestial gods or monstrous gods also came into these Israelites when their borrowed gold composed the coffin or ape. So when Moses was leading them to Israel itself, these Israelites, they have borrowed or collected all the gold when Moses was away for a communion with God. They collect the gold and build a golden calf, and they start worshipping it. And the rebel king doubled that sin in Bethel. So in other the rebel kings, of course, Solomon, of course, also doubled this in Bethel and in Dan. Okay, likening his maker to the grazed ox. So what this rebel king Israelites made a calf, but this king made an ox. Jehovah, who in one night when he passed from Egypt marching, equaled with one stroke both her firstborn and all her bleating gods. For worshipping the bestial gods or making the for idols of calf, ox, etc. And then one day he brought the curse onto Egyptians equally with to all those who started worshipping these bestial forms and killed all the firstborn. So firstborn of every family is killed. It is the punishment given by Jehovah for the people going out of the way. Then Belial came last. He says, after a crew of gods like Osiris, Isis, Horus, etc., Belial came last. Then, who is he? Than whom a spirit more lewd fell not from heaven, are more gross to love vice for itself. So Belial is the god of vice. Here they will not listen to the any word of heaven. Vice means bad. They like all bad things. To him no temple stood or altar smoked. Of course, for Belial there is no altar, there is no temple. Yet, who more oft than he in temples and altars when the priest turns atheist, as did Elias. So it is like he says that Belial is a god who is present everywhere when people act against gods. Okay, vice, act against the virtue. And consider, say, when Eli said there is no God at all. So all atheists are the followers of Belial. And Eli's sons who filled with lust and violence the house of God. So Eli's sons, they never listened to God, and they filled the house of God, the temple, with lust and violence. In courts and palaces, he also reigns. So in courts and palaces where there is a wrong witness, and palaces where there is a conspiracy, okay, and cheating one another, etc. And in luxurious cities, so in luxurious places where they don't follow any norm, where the noise of right ascends above their loftiest towers, noisy cities, and injury and outrage, and when night darkens the streets, thunder forth the sons of Belial, flown with insolence and wine. So, all those people who without discipline, having one or the other vices, okay, are drunkards, and cheaters, okay, murderers, etc. All these are the sons of Belial. And Milton says that he needs no temple or altar, because everywhere we will find people of these kinds. And he says we witness these kinds of people on the streets of Sodom. Okay, Sodom is the town, and it is said that it is the place of Belial. And that night in Gibeah, when the hospitable door exposed a matron to avoid worse rape. So in Gibeah, when people were doing the lustful deeds, okay, etc. The rest were long to tell. Though far renowned, the Ionian gods of Javan's issue held gods at confessed later than heaven and earth. So now he says that the rest were long to tell. There were many, and there were the sons of heaven later, yet confessed than heaven and earth. Issued held gods. They were all held gods. They later than heaven and earth. Their boasted parents, Titan, earthborn, heaven's firstborn with his enormous brood, and brightest seized by anger, Saturn, he from mightier Jove. All you can hear Jove, Olympus, then Titan, etc. This is all Greek mythology. And whatever is actually not Christian, of course, he takes it as the work of Saturn only. You know, there are many, what do you say, discussions whether it is right or wrong, etc. But of course, heathens, of course, all non-Christians are considered to be heathens, and all mythological gods, or all mythology, of course, is considered as belonging to Saturn by Milton. So he here names many other names also. He says now sons of Rhea in Greek mythology. So then Crete, Ida, and then Olympus. Okay, Mount Olympus is the place, no, mountain for muses, and the Delphian cliff, and the Dodona, and through all the bounds of Doric land, with Saturn, old fled over Adria, Hesperian fields, etc. Celtic. So these are all other mythologies are told that these are all the fallen angels who have turned to be like mythological characters or gods, um, who are earthborn also. Okay, so this is how he describes that there were many fallen angels who became gods in the what do you say, heathen lands, in the heathen lands. I hope you will go through the lecture, and while going through, please keep the text open and try to go through the lines. Here and there, you may not be able to understand, but don't worry in this part. But for the list that we need, who came after whom, it is nothing that much important. Okay, this just the description of how fallen angels have turned themselves to different gods of heathens. Okay, I'm closing the lecture. Have a nice time.